Thank you for joining me for a quick video on the stock market and the Super Bowl. Now, as we head into the game, a lot of analysts start talking about the Super Bowl indicator. It's widely publicized, and almost everyone who mentions it says you should ignore it because there's no reason the Super Bowl can forecast the stock market's performance. Well, I want to tell you they're wrong. The indicator has a solid track record, and there's a sound economic rationale for the Super Bowl indicator. We're going to look at that. But first, the indicator says stocks go up for the year if the NFC team wins, and we should expect a down year if the AFC team wins. Now, at first glance, it seems like there's no relationship. So let's look at the track record to see if this is even worth thinking about. Well, that's a pretty good record. What we see is that there's an average gain of 8.2% a year in the stock market since the first Super Bowl. And 71% of those years have been up. We see a slightly better percentage of up years and a slightly worse percentage of up years based upon the team that wins. And we see better performance when the NFC wins. We see lower than average performance when the AFC wins. Now, of course, it doesn't work every year. Last year, the NFC Eagles won the Super Bowl. Indicator tells us we should expect an up year, but the year was down. However, history explains why we should pay attention to this indicator. The NFL was formed in 1920, and it was in developed cities at that time. So basically, these were the leading cities of that day. And there were places along rivers for the most part, or along railheads. These were places where factories were the dominant form of employment. And that's naturally what we'd expect. This was the boom times, and this was the old Rust Belt economy, if you will. The AFL, on the other hand, was formed in 1959. They played their first games in 1960. This was the new economy. This was technology. This was oil. These were the new titans of industry, and none of them owned factories. That's the dynamic that's at play. The leagues represent the differences in the U.S. economy. The old NFL teams were centered on oil and manufacturing centers. We can find a large employer in each of those cities if we look back into the late 1800s and early 1900s that accounted for the commerce there. It's more diversified when the AFL starts up. It's after World War II. It's after the boom years. It's the time when technology is coming to the forefront. And by technology, we mean not just computer technology, but also medical and other forms of technology that began to dominate the economy after World War II. Relative economic strength explains why the Super Bowl indicator works. When the old economy is doing well, fans in Green Bay and other Rust Belt cities are buying those high-priced tickets, and they're generating revenue for those teams who can then go into the free agent market and sign the top players. When the new economy does better, the old AFL cities do better. And that's all this comes down to, new economy versus old economy. When we see teams in the old NFC doing well, we're seeing the old manufacturing jobs doing well. And their local communities do well, their sports teams do well. It's really that simple. Now, the indicator has a long record of success, but it may not hold up in the future simply because there are changes. Changes to the indexes like the Dow now favoring tech over manufacturing. So we may not see it working in the future as we did in the past. And of course, the NFL has a long history of revenue sharing, but the way that agreement plays out in the future could impact smaller market cities, many of which are old NFC teams. That's it. The Super Bowl indicator should work based upon relative economic strength, and I'll have more on this throughout Super Bowl week. Thanks. Thank you.